If I told you one player was the reason the NBA added a 24-second shot clock, would you believe me? Or that another made a rule just to widen the court lanes? These aren't just random rule changes. They were direct responses to unstoppable players. Once you hear their stories, you'll realize how the game itself was built to slow them down. Number 1. George Mikan. Imagine stepping onto a basketball court and realizing one player is entirely rewriting the game. That was George Mikan, the league's first true superstar. Standing at 6 feet 10 inches with unmatched skills for the era, Mikan dominated by parking himself near the basket, scoring with ease, and swatting shots like a volleyball player. Teams were left helpless, and games became so one-sided that fans started losing interest. Something had to be done. The NBA responded by doubling the width of the lane from 6 to 12 feet, later called the Mikan Rule. This pushed Mikan farther from the hoop, giving defenders at least a fighting chance. They also introduced the 3-second rule, forcing him to move rather than camp under the rim all game. These changes didn't just target Mikan, they fundamentally reshaped basketball. Offenses became faster and more dynamic, paving the way for the modern game. But even then, Mikan still crushed opponents. His dominance set the stage for even greater challenges down the line. Number 2. Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain didn't just dominate, he pushed the limits of basketball entirely. Standing 7 feet 1 inch with unmatched athleticism, Wilt did things no one else could. He'd swat shots straight out of the air, grab rebounds, and dunk immediately, sometimes off his own misses. Watching Wilt was almost like watching a grown man play against kids, and defenders were completely helpless. The NBA had no choice but to act. They widened the lane to 12 feet to force Wilt farther from the basket and tightened offensive goaltending rules, stopping him from tipping shots into the hoop right over defenders. Even a move where he inbounded the ball off the backboard for a dunk had to be banned, because, well, only Wilt could do that. None of it worked. Wilt still owns records that might never be touched, including his incredible 100-point game. Rule changes couldn't stop him. They only proved how far ahead of the game he was. Number 3. Darryl Dawkins. Darryl Dawkins wasn't just a player, he was a showman. Known for his thunderous dunks, Dawkins did something no one thought was possible. He shattered 2 backboards in the same season. Both moments stopped the game entirely, leaving glass scattered across the floor and forcing long, chaotic delays. The league quickly realized that the equipment itself couldn't handle the sheer force Dawkins brought to the rim. To prevent future disasters, the NBA introduced breakaway rims designed to absorb the impact of powerful dunks without shattering. They also reinforced backboards with stronger materials to keep players safe while still allowing the explosive plays fans loved. These changes transformed the way the game looked and felt, all thanks to Dawkins' raw power. But it wasn't just his physicality that made him unforgettable. Nicknamed Chocolate Thunder, Dawkins named his dunks like a poet. Moves like the Rim Wrecker and the Earthquake Maker added to his legend. He didn't just dunk, he entertained. Number 4. Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal was a force of nature. At over 7 feet tall and more than 300 pounds, he overpowered defenders in the paint with ease. Shaq didn't just score, he obliterated. Teams had no answer, so they resorted to an unusual tactic, intentionally fouling him. Dubbed Hack-a-Shaq, the strategy targeted his weakness at the free throw line, dragging games into slow, ugly battles of attrition. The NBA stepped in to address this. They introduced a rule giving the fouled team 1 free throw and possession of the ball if an intentional foul occurred away from the action late in games. But that wasn't all. The league also legalized zone defense, a tool to force Shaq out of his comfort zone near the rim. This change didn't just affect Shaq, it reshaped how teams played defense across the league. Despite all of this, Shaq stayed dominant, proving that even a rulebook couldn't contain him. Number 5. Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley had a style unlike anyone else, and his post-up game became his signature weapon. He would use his strength and low center of gravity to back defenders down in the paint, inch by inch, as the clock ticked away. Opposing teams just stood there, helpless, waiting for him to either spin into a layup or kick the ball out to an open shooter. It wasn't flashy. It was methodical, and it worked. The problem? It slowed the game to a standstill. The NBA introduced the 5-second rule to limit how long players could dribble with their back to the basket. It was a direct response to Barkley's ability to control the flow of the game entirely in isolation. Barkley, never shy, once joked, "I'll just change my game. I'm too good for a little rule to stop me." And to an extent, he was right. But the league had made its stance clear. Faster, more dynamic basketball was the future. Number 6. Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller thrived on mind games and clutch moments, but one of his most infamous moves didn't come in the final seconds of a close game. It came during his jump shot. Miller had a habit of extending his leg just enough to create contact with the defender, earning him trips to the free throw line. For defenders, it felt impossible to contest his shot without risking a foul, and opponents grew frustrated with how easily he manipulated the system. The NBA eventually stepped in and introduced what became known as the Reggie Miller Rule. This penalized players who initiated contact with their legs instead of rewarding them with foul calls. The change signaled a shift in how the league viewed contested shots, aiming to discourage unnecessary whistles and let defenders challenge shooters more fairly. This rule didn't diminish Miller's legacy. It highlighted how inventive scorers could push the limits of the game. And he wasn't the last to do so. Number 7. Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's scoring ability has always been a nightmare for defenders. His height, combined with his silky shooting touch, made him nearly impossible to guard. But there was one move in Durant's arsenal that frustrated opponents more than anything else: the infamous rip-through move. Durant would swing his arms upward into a defender's outstretched hands, drawing a foul and earning a trip to the free throw line. For defenders, it felt like a trap they could hardly avoid. The NBA eventually reclassified this move. Fouls drawn using the rip-through were no longer considered shooting fouls unless Durant was in the act of a legitimate shot. This change cut down his free throw attempts, but it also sent a message throughout the league. Players who manipulated unnatural motions to draw contact would no longer be rewarded. Durant, of course, adjusted and remained one of the game's most effective scorers, proving that no rule could stop true talent. Number 8. Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was electric on the court, but his impact went far beyond basketball. He wasn't just a player, he was a cultural force. Perhaps nothing captured his playing style more than his killer crossover, paired with a hesitation dribble that left defenders stumbling. But that signature move also blurred the line of what was considered carrying the ball. Referees began enforcing palming violations more strictly, largely due to the way Iverson manipulated his dribble. It wasn't just a crackdown on one player, it changed how the game itself was officiated. Off the court, Iverson's baggy clothes, jewelry, and cornrows turned heads, drawing pushback from the league's leadership. The introduction of an official dress code in 2005 was a direct result of Iverson's influence and sparked debates about individuality versus professionalism in the NBA. Even skills. With the scrutiny, Iverson's style resonated with a generation of fans, showing that a player's identity can reshape the game as powerfully as theirs. Number 9. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's dominance began long before his NBA career. Back in college, he was nearly unstoppable at UCLA, dunking over opponents with ease. He was so dominant, in fact, that the NCAA decided to ban dunking altogether in 1967, a rule that lasted for a full decade. On the surface, it seemed like an attempt to even the playing field, but in reality, it was a direct response to Kareem's overwhelming talent. This ban forced Kareem to adjust, and adjust he did. With no dunks allowed, he perfected the skyhook, a move so reliable and unguardable it became the most iconic shot in basketball history. The NBA, unlike the NCAA, never banned dunking, but they didn't need to. Kareem's skyhook was all he needed. Ironically, the rule that tried to limit him ended up extending his career, as the skyhook demanded less physicality than dunking. Kareem adapted, proving once again that greatness always finds a way. Number 10. Rasheed Wallace. Rasheed Wallace brought passion to the game like few others, but that same passion made him a nightmare for referees. Known for his fiery temperament and unwillingness to back down, Wallace racked up 41 technical fouls in a single season, more than some players manage in a career. Fans loved his emotion, but his constant arguing and confrontations caused chaos on the court and disrupted the flow of games. The NBA had to take action. In 2005, the league introduced stricter rules for technical fouls, directly influenced by Wallace's record-breaking antics. Players who reached 16 technicals in a season would receive a one-game suspension, with additional suspensions coming for every 2 technicals after that. Fines escalated as well, making it clear that outbursts would now have serious consequences. Wallace's actions forced the league to strike a balance between preserving player passion and maintaining professionalism. His legacy shows that even emotion can leave a lasting mark on the game. The NBA isn't just a league, it's a game constantly shaped by its greatest players. Every rule change, from widening the lane to redefining foul calls, stands as proof of how stars like Wilt Chamberlain and Allen Iverson challenged the norms. Their dominance pushed the league to evolve, keeping the sport competitive and fresh. But here's the thing. The rulebook isn't finished. Just as these legends force changes, today's stars will leave their mark too. So as we watch players like Luka Doncic or Victor Wembanyama, ask yourself, what's the next move so powerful, so unique, it rewrites the game?